The patrol car screeched to a halt so violently that Officer Reed's seatbelt dug into his chest. Because standing in the middle of the highway was a puppy, not running, not wandering, not confused, but begging. The tiny golden pup balanced on its hind legs, front paws pressed together like a terrified child pleading for its life. Its eyes, wide, shaking, desperate, locked onto Reed with a human-like urgency that sent a chill racing down his spine. What the... Reed stepped out slowly, one hand on his holster. The puppy whimpered, grabbed his pant leg with its teeth and yanked, pulling him toward the dense forest lining the road. "Hey, what's wrong? Lead me where?" No answer, only frantic tugging. Then, from deep inside the trees, a scream tore through the silence. Reed froze. What happened next shocked everyone. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Back to the story. Officer Reed didn't waste another second. The scream still echoed in his ears as the tiny golden puppy bolted into the woods, pausing only long enough to make sure he was following. Reed gripped his flashlight, stepped off the asphalt, and pushed into the tree line. Branches scraped his uniform, pine needles crunched beneath his boots, and the world behind him disappeared in an instant. The forest swallowed sound, light, and sense all at once. "Slow down," he called, breath steady but nerves razor-sharp. The puppy didn't slow. It darted around roots and low shrubs, stopping to bark back at him whenever he hesitated. There was no confusion in its movements, only purpose. Something was waiting ahead, something urgent. The deeper Reed went, the darker it became. Thick pines towered overhead, their branches knitting together to block out the sun. The air shifted, cooler, heavier. Every instinct in him screamed, caution. But the puppy's frantic yelps pushed him forward. Then, rustling. Not the light patter of squirrels, not the flutter of birds. Something larger. Reed froze mid-step. His hand drifted toward his holster. The bushes ahead trembled, not once but repeatedly, as if something moved through them fast and low. "Show yourself," he shouted. Silence answered him. The puppy barked sharply and trotted ahead again, seemingly unafraid. Reed followed, muscles tight, eyes scanning. The deeper they went, the more he noticed things that didn't sit right. Broken branches. Fresh mud kicked up, drag marks carved into the ground. Something, or someone, had passed through here recently. Very recently. Then he saw it. Footprints. At first he thought they were the puppy's, but the shape was wrong. Too large, too spread apart, and next to them, claw marks. Fresh ones. Reed knelt, running his finger along the grooves. Still damp. His stomach tightened. "What happened here?" He whispered. The puppy whimpered urgently, pawing at the ground ahead. Reed rose and followed its gaze. There, scattered leaves, disturbed soil, and something else. Fabric. A torn piece of blue cloth hung from a low branch, fluttering weakly in the breeze. A shirt sleeve? A jacket piece? Reed stepped closer, heart pounding harder now. The edge was ripped, not cut. The scream he'd heard earlier didn't feel distant anymore. It felt immediate, near. A faint sound drifted through the trees. Soft, fragile, almost too weak to notice. Crying. Not an animal's cry, not the whine of the puppy. Human. A child? An adult? He couldn't tell. The puppy barked, pulling him forward again, sprinting now with renewed desperation. Reed followed, breaking into a run as the crying grew louder, the trees thinning just enough for light to pierce through. Then he saw something on the ground that made him skid to a halt. Blood. A thin trail of it. Fresh, bright, leading deeper into the forest. Reed's pulse spiked. Who was hurt, and how much time did he have left? Reed crouched beside the blood trail, his breath tightening as he studied it. The droplets were thick, bright, and scattered in uneven intervals. Whoever was hurt hadn't been walking steadily. They were stumbling, maybe crawling, and they were close. The puppy sniffed the blood, whimpered softly, then dashed ahead, following the trail with absolute certainty. Reed rose and followed, hand on his flashlight, every sense sharpened to a needle point. "Easy, easy," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to the dog or to himself. The forest thickened again, branches arching overhead like a tunnel. Sunlight faded into strips of gold, flickering across the undergrowth. The only sounds were Reed's footsteps and the puppy's rapid breathing. Every few feet, Reed noticed more signs of struggle: broken twigs, disturbed soil, claw marks gouged into the bark of a fallen log. Something wild had been here. Something powerful, and it wasn't far. Reed tried his radio again. Static. Nothing. He kept moving. The trail twisted between two leaning trees, their trunks forming a narrow passage. Reed squeezed through, emerging into a small clearing where the light filtered down in soft, trembling beams. At first glance it seemed empty, until something shifted behind a fallen tree. Reed's heart slammed into his ribs. The puppy barked sharply, sprinting toward the sound. "Wait," Reed hissed, but the little dog didn't stop. Reed approached slowly, muscles locked, watching for movement. His flashlight beam skimmed across the fallen log, then dipped beneath it. There. A shape. Small. Shaking. A whimper reached his ears, fragile and weak. Reed knelt and leaned forward, aiming the light under the log. A puppy. Another one. Smaller than the first. Mud matted its fur, its side stained with blood. The little body trembled violently, each breath shallow, struggling. It wasn't crying anymore. Its voice was barely strong enough. The golden puppy pressed its nose against the injured one, whining softly, nudging it as if begging it to stay awake. Reed felt his chest tighten as he reached in. "Easy, buddy. I've got you." The injured pup flinched but didn't resist. Reed slid his hands under its fragile body and lifted it gently. The warm blood smeared across his palms, and he felt the uneven rise and fall of its breaths. "What happened to you?" Reed whispered. Then, a sound. Low, rumbling, a growl. Reed froze, holding the injured puppy against his chest. The golden pup went silent, ears flattening, tail tucking tightly beneath its body. The growl deepened, coming from behind him. Reed turned his head slowly, every muscle coiled. The bushes trembled. Something was watching him. Something big, and getting closer. Reed didn't dare breathe. The growl behind him stretched into a long, vibrating rumble that crawled straight up his spine. He tightened his hold on the injured puppy, feeling its trembling body press harder against his chest. The golden puppy pressed itself against his boot, shaking violently but refusing to run. Whatever was in the bushes wasn't small. Reed shifted just enough to angle his flashlight toward the sound. The beam cut through the leaves, shaking slightly in his hand. "Easy," he whispered, voice barely audible. The bushes rustled again, slow, deliberate, heavy. Reed rose to his feet in one smooth motion, shielding both puppies with his body. His thumb hovered over his holster. Another growl rolled through the trees. Then another. Closer. Reed's instincts screamed danger, but something about the sound didn't match a predator about to attack. It was deep, guttural, but strained, agonized even. Still, he couldn't take chances. "Show yourself," he commanded, stepping back carefully. The golden puppy barked once, sharp, frightened. The injured pup whimpered weakly, its tiny claws gripping Reed's shirt. A branch snapped. Reed spun toward the sound. Two glowing eyes stared back at him through the shadows, low to the ground, locked onto him, unblinking. He swallowed hard. A creature stepped halfway into the light. Massive shoulders, thick fur, a slow limp that made the earth crunch beneath each step. The silhouette was unmistakable. A wolf. A large one. And it wasn't just watching him. It was staring at the puppies. The golden pup pressed harder against Reed's leg. The injured one tensed in his arms, but the wolf didn't charge, didn't snarl, didn't lunge. It simply stood there, chest heaving, sides scraped with dried blood, one paw dragging slightly as if injured. Its eyes flicked between Reed and the puppies with an expression Reed couldn't name. Fear? Pain? Panic? Reed kept his voice steady. "I don't want to hurt you, but I will if I have to." The wolf's ears twitched. The golden puppy suddenly stepped forward, letting out a soft, broken whine, nothing like a threat. More like recognition. Reed blinked. "What are you doing? Stay back." But the puppy didn't listen. It walked toward the wolf, trembling but determined, stopping just a few feet away. The wolf responded with a guttural sound, lowering its head, sniffing the air between them. Reed felt the hair on his arms rise. This wasn't aggression. This was communication. The wolf took one limping step closer. Reed clenched his jaw, unsure if he should draw his weapon or back away. The forest fell silent. Then, a sudden crack behind the wolf made it whip its head around violently. Something else was out there. Something that made even the wolf afraid. Reed tightened his grip. If the wolf wasn't the danger, then what was? Reed's breath hitched as the wolf snapped its head toward the deeper brush, every muscle in its body tightening despite its limp. The growl it released this time was different, no longer directed at Reed, but toward whatever was stalking behind it. A warning, a threat, a command to stay back. The golden puppy whimpered and retreated until it pressed itself against Reed's boot again. Even the injured pup in Reed's arms stirred, its tiny body shivering violently in instinctive fear. Something large moved through the trees, slow, heavy, purposeful. Reed's hand went to his holster again. "All right, who else is out here?" No answer, just the crunch of weight shifting through dry leaves. The wolf stepped sideways, placing itself, not between Reed and the noise, but between the puppies and the noise. Reed's eyes widened. It wasn't protecting itself. It was guarding them. "What is going on?" he whispered. The bushes trembled harder. A low snarl slithered through the darkness, higher pitched, more violent, less controlled than the wolf's own growl. The wolf responded instantly, baring its teeth, fur bristling along its spine. Reed's finger brushed the safety on his weapon. The tension in the air tightened like a pulled wire. He felt the moment shifting, building, ready to snap. "Stay behind me," he told the golden puppy, though the little dog was already glued to him. Another crack. Closer this time. Reed raised his flashlight, beam swinging toward the sound, and the moment he illuminated the brush, two amber eyes flashed back. Not the wolf's, higher up, wider apart, predatory. Reed's pulse slammed. Whatever it was much bigger. The creature pushed forward another inch, its form still hidden by the trees. A low, throaty growl vibrated the ground beneath Reed's boots. Even the wolf took a step back, limping but refusing to retreat completely. The golden puppy barked once, brave but terrified. Reed hissed, "Shh, not now." The creature in the brush responded instantly to the sound. Its eyes shifted, focusing on the healthy puppy. Reed saw it. The moment interest turned into intent. He didn't wait. Reed took 2 steps, backward, tightening his hold on the injured puppy. "We're moving," he muttered. The wolf matched him, inch for inch, keeping its weakened body between the danger and the pups. Reed didn't know why the wolf was helping, but right now he wasn't about to question it. He guided the golden puppy with his leg, pushing it behind him as he retreated. The creature followed, silent, stalking, waiting for an opening. Reed's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Then, without warning, The creature pushed forward another step, large enough for Reed to see a massive shadow shift through the trees. And that was when he understood. The wolf wasn't the threat. It was running from the real one. Reed didn't wait for the creature to reveal itself. Survival instincts surged through him, sharp and electric. He shifted the injured puppy in his arms, tightened his grip, and jerked his head toward the narrow trail behind them. "Move," he whispered harshly. The golden puppy darted first, sprinting down the cramped path. Reed followed, boots pounding against the uneven forest floor. Behind him, the wolf limped quickly, forcing itself forward despite the pain. The creature in the shadows came after them, heavy steps shaking the ground with each stride. Branches snapped violently as it pushed through. Reed didn't look back. He couldn't. The path was barely wide enough for one person, roots jutting up like traps meant to snag his feet. His flashlight beam bounced wildly, slicing through the darkness in broken swipes. Every breath felt too loud, too exposed. The injured puppy whimpered, its tiny body convulsing with fear. "I've got you," Reed muttered, though he wasn't sure if he was reassuring the pup or himself. A thunderous crash behind him made him whirl his head just enough to see a massive shape barrel through a fallen tree, splintering it like matchsticks. Adrenaline surged. "Go, go, go!" Reed shouted, pushing himself faster down the trail. The youth, golden puppy stayed just ahead of him, glancing back every few seconds to ensure he was still coming. Its tiny paws kicked up dirt as it zigzagged around obstacles with desperate precision. The wolf limped at Reed's side, breathing hard, panting from effort and injury. But it didn't fall behind. It didn't quit. It guarded the rear, placing itself between the officer and the monster chasing them. A guttural roar exploded behind them. Reed's blood chilled. The golden puppy yelped but kept running. The path narrowed further, forcing Reed to twist sideways to avoid brushing against jagged rocks. The injured puppy cried out as a branch scraped Reed's arm, causing him to stumble, but he caught himself just before falling. Then the ground dipped sharply. A slope, steep, dangerous. Reed slid down it with barely any control, rocks tumbling with him. He clutched the injured pup tighter, shielding its fragile body with his own. The golden puppy skidded ahead, tumbling into a patch of soft dirt before scrambling back to its feet. The wolf slid last, its claws digging furiously into the soil to slow itself down. For a moment, just a moment, the forest grew quiet. No footsteps, no snapping branches, no growls. Maybe they'd gained distance. Maybe they'd lost it. Then, a thunderous crash shook the slope. The creature was coming down after them, unstoppable, uncaring of the drop. Reed forced himself upright, sweat stinging his eyes. "We need to move," he said. He turned to run, and froze, just ahead of them. The path ended. A cliff edge, a sheer drop into darkness, trapped, and the creature was almost on top of them. Now what? Reed's boots skidded to a stop just inches from the cliff's edge. Loose gravel tumbled over the side, disappearing into a black void far below. Wind rushed upward from the drop, cold and sharp, brushing against his face like a warning. No way down, no way across, no time to think. The golden puppy froze beside him, chest heaving. The injured pup whimpered in Reed's arms, sensing the officer's fear. Behind them, the wolf staggered to a halt, planting itself protectively between Reed and the creature barreling down the slope. Branches exploded behind them as the monster crashed through the trees, its heavy footsteps making the earth tremble beneath Reed's feet. They had seconds, maybe less. Reed spun around, scanning the area desperately. The cliff curved to the left, but the path was narrow and crumbling. To the right, the terrain dipped into thick brambles, too dense to run through with the injured pup. They were boxed in. The wolf turned, lips curling, teeth bared despite its limp. It let out a low, guttural snarl that vibrated in its throat. Even wounded, it readied itself to fight. Reed felt the weight of the moment settle onto him like a crushing stone. "It's okay," Reed whispered, though nothing was okay. Just hold on, we'll figure this out. The creature finally broke, through the last line of trees. Reed saw it clearly now. Massive, dark-furred, shoulders broad as boulders, eyes burning with feral hunger. Not a wolf, not a bear, something in between. Wounded, furious, and unpredictable. Its breath came out in ragged bursts, and deep claw marks scored its flank as though it had been fighting for hours before this moment. The golden puppy whimpered. The creature's gaze snapped toward it instantly. Reed's stomach dropped. "No," he said under his breath. "Not happening." He stepped in front of the puppy, raising his free arm, body shielding both pups. The creature lowered itself toward the ground, muscles rippling beneath its ragged fur. It was preparing to charge. The wolf snarled louder and took a shaky step forward, planting itself beside Reed with surprising determination. For an instant, officer and wolf stood as one line of defense. The creature roared. Then it ran. Everything happened at once. Reed braced himself, tightening his hold on the injured pup. The golden puppy shrank against his leg. The wolf lunged forward, teeth bared, ignoring its limp. The ground shook violently under the creature's pounding steps. And Reed spotted something. A narrow ledge beneath the cliff. Small, angled, but wide enough to land on. It was a risk, a terrible one. But staying meant death. "Jump!" Reed shouted. The golden puppy's eyes widened. The wolf growled in shock. Reed took one step back, heart slamming in his chest as the creature closed the final distance. And with no other choice, he leapt. Did he fall to safety, or straight into something worse? Reed hit the ledge hard. His boots slammed against the narrow rock shelf, sending a burst of pain up his legs. Pebbles scattered into the darkness below, clattering endlessly before fading into silence. The injured puppy let out a weak cry as Reed tightened his grip, bracing himself against the cliff wall to keep from sliding off. The ledge was barely wider than his shoulders. One wrong move, one slip, and they'd fall straight into the ravine. Above him, the golden puppy scrambled after him, landing clumsily but safely. The little dog pressed itself against the cliff, trembling. A shadow soared overhead. Reed looked up just in time to see the wolf leap. It landed beside them with a grunt, claws scraping desperately for traction. For a terrifying second, it slid. Reed lunged, grabbing its fur with his free hand, pulling it toward him. The wolf steadied itself, panting heavily, eyes wide with instinctive fear. Then, a thunderous crack. The creature above them lunged forward, but instead of jumping, its weight slammed onto the cliff's edge. The ground beneath its paws crumbled violently, rocks cascading into the ravine like a collapsing bridge. The monster roared in fury as the cliff face broke apart underneath it. Dust rained down on Reed and the animals. The ledge shook beneath them. "Hold on!" Reed shouted, pressing himself into the stone. The creature struggled to regain footing, claws digging desperately into loose dirt. Half its body hung over the edge, suspended above the drop. It roared again, a deep, guttural sound vibrating through the rock. But the roar wasn't anger this time. It was pain. Reed blinked, startled. The creature's flank was torn, deep gashes running across its ribs. Fresh blood dripped into the ravine below. It wasn't hunting for sport. It was wounded, terrified, and cornered. The wolf growled again, but it wasn't a challenge. More like a warning, a boundary. The creature's eyes flicked to the wolf, and suddenly the tension shifted. The wolf wasn't afraid of it. It was afraid for something. Reed felt it like a jolt. Slowly, carefully, he raised his flashlight and aimed it upward, past the injured creature deeper into the forest where it had come from. Something caught the light. A wooden shape, splintered, heavy, fallen, a collapsed tree, pinned beneath it. Something small moved. Reed's breath caught. Not a puppy, not a child. A wolf pup. Eyes barely open, chest rising with shallow, painful breaths. The injured adult wolf beside him let out a soft, desperate sound. Not aggression, not threat. A plea. Reed stared at the trapped pup, realization crashing over him like icy water. The wolf wasn't hunting the puppies. It wasn't chasing Reed. It had been running from the creature, too, because its own pup was dying under that fallen tree, and Reed was suddenly the only one who could save it. For a moment, Reed forgot about the cliff, the danger, the creature struggling above them, everything. All he saw was the tiny wolf pup pinned beneath the collapsed tree. Its breaths were weak, its paws twitching helplessly as it whimpered in pain. The sound was faint, fragile, fading. The adult wolf beside him made another soft, aching noise. Not a growl, not a warning, a cry. Reed had never heard anything like it from a wild animal. The golden puppy nudged Reed's leg, whimpering too, as if urging him to look, really look. The injured puppy in Reed's arms let out a faint whine, reacting instinctively to the distress around them. Reed swallowed hard. "You're not attacking us," he whispered to the wolf. "You're trying to protect your baby." The wolf's amber eyes flicked up to him, raw, desperate. Reed looked back at the creature above the cliff. It clawed at loose dirt still half hanging over the edge. Its howl echoed down the ravine, but there was something strange in it now. Fear. The two animals weren't enemies. They were victims, both running from something far worse. The golden puppy stepped toward the ledge above, letting out a soft bark toward the trapped wolf pup. It wasn't frightened anymore. It was pleading. Reed steadied his breath. "Okay," he murmured. "I hear you." But reaching the pup wasn't simple. The fallen tree was on the upper cliff, beyond the crumbling edge. The creature, blocking the path, was still thrashing, trying to pull itself up. Any wrong move could send rocks raining down, or worse, bring the monster crashing straight onto their heads. Reed scanned the rock wall. A narrow foothold curved upward just enough to climb around the creature. Dangerous, but possible. He tightened his grip on the injured puppy, then looked at the wolf. "I need to get to your pup, but you have to let me go." The wolf lowered its head, backing slightly. Permission. Reed gently set the injured puppy beside the golden one. "Stay, both of you." He didn't know if they understood, but the golden pup pressed protectively beside its wounded sibling, holding still. Reed pulled himself up, fingers digging into rough stone. Pebbles tumbled as he climbed, every toehold a gamble. The injured creature snarled above, not at him, but at the pain racking its body. It clung to the ledge with bleeding claws, body trembling. "Easy," Reed muttered, inching around it. "I'm not after you." The creature heaved, chest expanding with a ragged breath. For a moment, Reed met its eyes, wild, confused, terrified. The same fear he saw in the wolf. Then he moved past it, reaching the collapsed tree. The wolf pup whimpered weakly. Its tiny flank barely rose. Reed knelt beside it, heart pounding. He touched the log, testing its weight. It didn't budge. He gritted his teeth. If he didn't lift it soon, the pup wouldn't survive. Reed braced both hands against the fallen tree, muscles tightening, breath shaking. The log was heavier than he expected, dense, waterlogged, wedged deep into the forest floor. The trapped wolf pup let out a tiny, broken cry as Reed pushed, the sound slicing through him like a blade. I know, he whispered. "Hang on for me." The adult wolf stood on the ledge below, staring up with desperate intensity. Every time Reed tried to lift, the wolf whined softly, as if urging him to keep going. The golden puppy barked from below, pacing anxiously with quick, frantic steps. Reed repositioned his feet, planted his shoulder against the bark, and shoved with everything he had. Nothing. The log didn't budge an inch. He gritted his teeth, sweat dripping down his forehead. Come on. The wolf pup whimpered again, weaker this time. Its tiny chest rose unevenly, breath slipping in shallow, stuttering waves. It was fading. Fast. Reed's pulse hammered. "I'm not losing you," he muttered. "Not today." He scanned the surroundings, broken branches, scattered rocks, a half-split limb jutting from the log like a lever. An idea sparked. Reed grabbed the limb, wedged it under the log's heaviest point, and put his full weight onto it. The wood groaned. Dirt shifted. The log lifted half an inch, barely, but the pup gasped, its tiny body freeing just enough to breathe. "That's it! That's it!" Reed strained, arms shaking, knees buckling. He pressed harder. The limb creaked. The log rose another inch. Below, the adult wolf tensed, watching every movement with trembling anticipation. Reed couldn't hold it much longer. The pressure burned up his arms like fire, but the pup was still pinned by its hind leg. He needed more height. He pushed again, letting out a low, guttural yell of effort. The lever groaned louder, then snapped. Reed stumbled as the limb broke in half, the log slamming back down, but not fully. The ground beneath the tree had shifted just enough from his efforts. The log now rested crookedly on a rock, leaving a narrow gap beneath it. Small, but big enough. Reed dropped to his knees and reached under. "Come here, little one." The pup whimpered faintly. Reed slid his hands under its fragile body, careful not to pull too hard. He lifted slowly, gently, easing it out from under the uneven weight. The pup cried, but the sound, weak as it was, meant it was still alive. Finally, it came free. Reed cradled the tiny wolf pup against his chest. Its breathing was shallow, body limp, eyes half closed. "You're safe now," Reed whispered. Below, the adult wolf released a sound Reed had never heard from a wild animal. Relief. But the moment broke instantly as the injured creature behind Reed let out a furious, struggling roar. It wasn't done, and it wasn't letting them leave. Reed clutched the rescued wolf pup tightly against his chest, its tiny heartbeat fluttering weakly against his palm. The moment should have felt triumphant, but the injured creature behind him shattered any relief. It released another guttural roar, thrashing violently as it tried to haul its massive body away from the cliff's edge. Reed spun around, heart pounding. The creature's claws scraped desperately against loose soil, sending pebbles and debris raining down the ravine. It was slipping again, losing the last bit of ground keeping it alive, and if it fell, it would crash straight onto the narrow ledge where the puppies and adult wolf waited. Reed's stomach tightened. One wrong move could kill all of them. The golden puppy barked anxiously below, ears pinned flat, tail tucked. The injured puppy lay weakly beside it, trembling but alive. The adult wolf limped closer to the edge, staring up at Reed with wide, panicked eyes. It sensed the danger, too. Reed stepped sideways, trying to shield the wolf pup he carried. "Easy," he whispered to the creature, though he knew it couldn't understand him. "Don't fall. Don't fall." The giant beast let out a strained, agonized bellow. For the first time, Reed saw the truth in its movements. Not anger, but instinct. Pain. Desperation. It wasn't hunting. It was hurt and frightened beyond reason. Still, its weight threatened to break the cliff apart. Reed looked down at the ledge. "I'm coming down," he called to the wolf. He didn't know why he said it. He didn't know if wolves understood tone, or emotion, or intent. But the adult wolf backed up a step, making space. Reed lowered himself slowly, keeping the wolf pup close. His boots found the edge again, wobbling slightly. He crouched, letting himself drop the final few inches until he landed beside the wolf and the two puppies. The adult wolf pressed its muzzle into the pup Reed carried, sniffing urgently. A soft, trembling sound left its throat, a sound Reed had never imagined a wolf could make. Pure grief. Pure love. "Easy," Reed whispered, kneeling as he laid the tiny pup gently on the ground. The wolf nuzzled it, licking its face, trembling uncontrollably. The golden puppy stepped closer too, offering a soft nudge as if comforting it. The injured puppy let out a weak whimper from the ground beside them. All four small creatures, two species, curled around each other in fear, pain, and instinctive trust. Reed swallowed hard. This wasn't just survival. This was family trying to hold together in the face of something monstrous. But the threat wasn't gone. A violent crack tore through the air above them. Reed jerked his head up. The creature's grip finally gave out. It slid forward, massive, furious, uncontrollable, and it was coming straight down the cliff toward them. Reed lunged, arms out, trying to shield the puppies. The wolf braced itself beside him, teeth bared. The creature roared, and the ledge beneath their feet began to crumble. The ledge groaned beneath them, dust spilling like sand through Reed's fingers as he grabbed the nearest rock for balance. The creature above slid another foot down the cliff face, its claws carving desperate, chaotic lines through the dirt. Every movement sent vibrations through the ledge, threatening to break it apart completely. The golden puppy bolted behind Reed, tail tucked. The injured puppy whimpered softly, barely able to move. The adult wolf curled its body around its pup, shielding it with instinctive desperation. Reed spread his arms wide, trying to cover them all, even though he knew he was no shield against a falling beast. The creature roared as it lost more ground, its body tilting, sliding, grinding against stone. Reed's pulse hammered. "Hold on," he shouted, though there was nothing to hold on to. A final crack echoed across the ravine. The massive creature slipped, tumbling down the cliff. Reed gasped, certain this was it. But the beast didn't fall straight onto them. It hit a jutting rock ledge just above their position, crashing violently. The impact sent up a cloud of dirt and broken stone. The creature groaned, its limbs trembling from the collision. Blood oozed down its side. It was alive, but barely, and blocking the only upward path. Reed took the chance to act. "Move," he urged, guiding the puppies toward the narrow sloping exit to the right. The adult wolf limped behind him, eyes flicking between its pup and the creature above. Its breaths were heavy, strained. Rain began to fall. First droplets, then a downpour. Water streaked across Reed's face, dripping from his chin. Thunder cracked above the treetops, rattling the cliff walls. The slope became slick instantly. Reed nearly slipped while lifting the injured puppy into his arms again. The golden pup followed close, paws sliding on wet rock. The wolf hesitated, glancing back toward its pup. Reed knelt. "I've got him," he said quietly. The wolf pressed its muzzle against the pup one more time, then stepped aside, allowing Reed to carry it. As they reached the sloped path, the ground trembled again. The creature above them shifted, groaning in agony. It wasn't chasing anymore, but its weight was destabilizing the cliff. Reed pushed forward, boots sliding dangerously. "Just a little farther," he gritted out. The golden puppy scrambled ahead, yelping every time the earth shook. The injured puppy whimpered in Reed's arms. The wolf limped behind him, head lowered, body trembling with exhaustion. Water poured down the slope in thin streams, turning the narrow passage into a slippery chute. Reed braced himself against the rock wall, inching sideways. Lightning flashed. Thunder boomed. Another rumble shook the ground. The creature above finally lost the last bit of foothold and plummeted in the opposite direction, crashing deep into the ravine with a fading roar. Silence returned, but the storm only grew worse. Reed looked ahead, breath tight. The path split in two. One way led into complete darkness, the other toward faint light. But the wolf stepped in front of him and nudged him toward the dark path. Reed hesitated at the fork, rain pounding against his shoulders, wind slicing through the narrow passage like a warning. The faint light to the right looked like the obvious choice. Open space, maybe a clearing, maybe safety. But the wolf didn't even glance at it. Instead, it stepped in front of Reed, blocking the brighter path with its body. Its fur dripped with rain, chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Then, with slow, purposeful movements, it nudged Reed's leg, urging him toward the darkness. "You want us to go that way?" Reed murmured, voice barely audible over the storm. The wolf gave a small grunt, then limped a few steps into the shadowed trail and looked back. Its meaning was clear. "Trust me." The injured puppy in Reed's arms whimpered. The golden puppy pressed close to his boot, trembling. The wolf pup, weak but alive, made a faint sound that echoed the same direction. Reed exhaled, adjusting his grip on the wounded pup. "All right," he whispered. "Lead the way." The wolf turned and moved into the dark. Reed followed. The deeper they went, the narrower the path became. Rain pattered against the rock walls, forming thin rivers that trickled past Reed's boots. His flashlight flickered across jagged stone, warped roots, and the hollow gnarls of tree bark dripping with water. The golden puppy trotted close behind the wolf, surprisingly steady for such a tiny creature. Reed saw something new in its movements, a sense of purpose, as if it knew this path just as well as the wolf did. Lightning cracked again overhead, illuminating the cramped passage in a blinding white flash. For an instant, Reed saw the wolf stumble. "Hey, easy," he whispered, rushing forward. But before he could reach it, the wolf pushed itself upright again, refusing to slow down. Its limp was worse now, every step a visible struggle. Still, it kept going, driven by something deeper than pain. Reed realized what it was. Hope. The wolf believed this path led to safety, and if the wolf believed it, Reed had no choice but to believe too. Minutes passed. The storm's roar faded behind them as the path curved and dipped. Reed's legs ached, soaked to the bone, but he kept pushing forward, one careful step at a time. Then, a faint sound drifted through the darkness. Not growling, not rustling, not danger, air, moving air. Reed's heart leapt. "Is that?" The wolf perked its ears, picking up the sound too. It limped faster. The passage widened. Reed felt a shift. The air was fresher, cooler. The rain's smell faded, replaced by something clearer. The golden puppy barked once, tail lifting for the first time since the chase began. They pushed forward and emerged into a hidden clearing. Moonlight broke through a gap in the clouds, illuminating a wide, sheltered opening carved naturally into the rock, a safe pocket away from the storm, the cliff, and the creature. Reed exhaled shakily, but before he could breathe in relief, the wolf collapsed. Its legs buckled, its body hit the ground, and its breaths grew shallow, too shallow. The puppies whimpered. Reed knelt beside the wolf, rainwater dripping from his chin. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Don't you dare quit now." But the wolf didn't respond. Its eyes fluttered, its chest trembled, and Reed realized they might have saved its pup, but they were about to lose the parent. Reed dropped to his knees beside the collapsing wolf, his breath catching as he slid an arm under its neck. The animal weighed far more than he expected. Thick muscle, heavy fur soaked with rain, and the sheer dead weight of exhaustion pulling it toward the earth. "Hey, hey, stay with me," Reed urged, voice cracking. The wolf's breaths were shallow, ragged. Each inhale shuddered through its ribs like a failing engine. Mud clung to its torn flank where deep wounds oozed sluggish trails of blood. The wolf pup whimpered, dragging itself toward its parent with trembling paws. The golden puppy pressed close, licking the adult wolf's muzzle as if begging it not to fade. Even the injured puppy, barely able to move, let out a faint cry of distress. Reed's chest tightened. "You're not dying," he whispered fiercely. "Not after everything you've done." He looked around desperately. They were in a clearing, but one surrounded by thick forest. No roads, no buildings, no signs of human life. Rain still fell at the edges, but the natural stone canopy above kept them mostly dry. He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Reed. I need immediate medical—" Static. He stepped back, raising the radio toward the opening in the rock. "Dispatch, do you copy? Anyone? I need assistance." More static. The storm had wrecked the signal. The wolf exhaled a long, trembling breath. Its eyes drooped halfway shut. "No, no, no, look at me," Reed said, grabbing its head gently. "You didn't lead us here to die. You led us here because you knew it was safe." Lightning flashed somewhere beyond the cliffs. The wolf pup crawled forward and buried its face into its parent's neck, tiny body shaking with each weak whimper. Reed felt something inside him splinter. He couldn't let this animal, this protector, fade after fighting so hard to save its own pup, and, indirectly, the puppies that weren't even its species. He knelt beside the wolf, pulling off his jacket with one hand while cradling the wolf's head with the other. He pressed the fabric against the wolf's deepest wound, applying pressure. "It's okay," he murmured softly. "Help is coming, I promise." The golden puppy stepped beside him and gently nudged the wolf's paw with its nose. The injured puppy moved too, dragging itself weakly until its head rested on the wolf's side. Reed swallowed the lump forming in his throat. "You stayed alive long enough to get us here," he whispered. "Now you stay alive long enough to get help." He raised the radio again. And finally, through a wave of crackling static, a faint voice broke through. "Officer Reed, do you copy? Your last signal was weak. Repeat your location." Reed's heart exploded with relief. "Yes. I need emergency rescue teams immediately. I have multiple injured animals, including one severely critical. I need extraction." The line crackled. "Copy that. Stay put. Team en route." Reed dropped to his knees again, placing a hand on the wolf's chest. "You hear that?" he whispered. The wolf's eyes fluttered open just a sliver. The golden puppy nudged its nose against the wolf's. A final plea. A final spark. The wolf exhaled softly. And held on. The rescue team arrived faster than Reed expected. Boots pounding through the forest, flashlights slicing across the clearing, voices calling out over the fading storm. Reed stood immediately, waving them in with frantic urgency. "Over here. Hurry." Medics rushed forward with stretchers and medical kits. The wolf lay motionless except for its shallow breaths. The wolf pup had curled itself against its parent, tiny body trembling. The two puppies, golden and injured, huddled close to Reed, watching every movement with wide, trusting eyes. One medic dropped to his knees, examining the wolf's flank. "Severe blood loss, deep lacerations. It's in shock." "Can you save it?" Reed demanded, voice raw. "We'll do everything we can." Another medic examined the wolf pup, checking its limbs, pressing gently against its ribs. "This one needs treatment immediately, but it's alive." Reed exhaled, shoulders sagging. The golden puppy nudged his boot, as if reminding him this wasn't over. The medics carefully lifted the wolf onto a stretcher. The wolf pup cried out, trying to climb after it. Reed gently scooped the pup into his arms, whispering, "You're going too." When the injured puppy whimpered, a rescuer bent down and lifted it with care. "We've got this little one too." The golden puppy barked once as if insisting it was coming as well. Reed picked it up, pressing it against his chest. "You're with me," he murmured. The hike back through the forest was slow but steady. Rain softened into a mist. The storm finally broke apart, revealing faint moonlight above the treetops. Reed walked beside the stretcher carrying the wolf, refusing to leave its side. Hours later, under the bright white lights of the Animal Rescue Center, Reed waited anxiously in the hallway. The golden puppy sat at his feet. The injured puppy and the wolf pup lay on blankets beside him, sleeping. A door opened. The veterinarian stepped out. Reed stood instantly. "How is it?" The vet gave a small, tired smile. The wolf pup will fully recover. The injured puppy is stable. The golden one is perfectly healthy." "And the adult wolf?" Reed asked, barely breathing. The vet paused, then nodded. "It survived. It lost a lot of blood, but you got it here just in time." Reed closed his eyes, relief pouring through him like warmth. Hours later, after treatments were complete, a nurse approached with a clipboard. "Officer Reed, the two puppies need a home. Given the circumstances, would you like to adopt them?" Reed didn't hesitate. He glanced down at the golden puppy gazing up at him with devotion. "Yes," he said softly. "Both of them." Weeks later, Reed returned to the rescue center as the wolf was released back into the forest. It paused at the tree line, looking back at him with deep, knowing eyes. Then it bowed its head, a gesture of gratitude. Reed whispered, "Take care of your family." Behind him, the two puppies barked softly, and for the first time since that night, everything felt whole. Because sometimes heroes don't wear badges. Sometimes they walk on 4 legs.